Well, hello, my CNC sister or brother. I am Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, and I want to welcome you to this video. Have you ever worked on a project in your design software that you want to carve out on your CNC router, and you just can't get that project to turn out the way you envisioned in your mind? Well, that happens to a lot of people. In fact, I get a lot of emails from people with that kind of issue, and they're wondering how to solve it. And I just got one recently from a guy named Glenn who's making this really cool little sign that has a lot of meaning that he wants to give to his friends, and he's having the same issue. It just won't come out the way he's trying to get it to come out. And so I figured it was a perfect time to shoot a video for you to help you start thinking outside the box when it comes to doing your design work. That there's more than one ways to skin a cat. There are some ways you can design things and there's some ways you can't, because there are certain restrictions that you just have. And I will explain that as we get into this. What we're going to do is we're going to dissect Glenn's project to explain the problems, and then we're going to go into 3 different ways that he can do this project. The idea is to help you get outside the box, and when you get stuck, to step back and say, how else can I do this project to make it look just as cool or even better? So that's exactly what we're going to do. I just want to let you know that this is not an absolute beginner's video. You have to have a little bit of beginner's experience with the Vectric software to understand some of the things I'm going to be doing. But we're going to be going deep into this so that you understand everything. And I promise by the time you come out on the other side of this video, you're going to be at this level. So buckle up your seatbelt, get a cup of coffee, and let's get learning. Let's go.
Okay, we are in the Vectric software, and this is the project that we are going to be working through to solve some issues and show you different ways to do this. So before I get started, I just want to let you know that I am working in Vectric Vcarve Pro version 11. Now, some videos I do in the desktop version, some videos I do in the Pro version. It's just because I have both versions. But all the things that I do in the videos, you have in both versions. Just want to distinguish the difference between the two before we get started. The desktop version will allow you to do jobs up to 24 inches by 24 inches on a single project, whereas the Pro version will allow you to do any size. And Pro has a few more tools with it too. So if you have a CNC router that's 24 inches by 24 inches cut space or smaller, then you want to get the desktop version. Otherwise, get the Pro version. And I would ask, if you would, that if you decide to get the Vectric software, down in the description is an affiliate link, and if you could use that affiliate link, that would certainly help me out. It gives me a little bit of pocket change for doing what I do here to create these kind of videos for you. Okay, so let's work on this. But for the grace of God, is the project that Greg is working on, and the one he is struggling with to get it to look the way he wants it to look. I just want to show you what it looks like. We are going to do a quick touch up here just to get it a little bit clearer. There we go, for you. There it is, but for the grace of God. And there are issues with this project that he can't work out. And so we're going to talk about the issues that he has, and I'm going to show you other ways to think about this. The whole point of this video is to help you think outside the box and look at different ways that you can run your projects when you are stuck in a way that you can't seem to get the project to work out right. So I'm going to show you the 3 examples we're going to run through. One will be looking like this, but for the grace of God, where we have this outline around the project words. Looks kind of cool. And then we are going to do one that is just V-carved, very easy to make, and the shortest time. And finally, the one that you, Greg, will want to do, and that you as the viewer will want to certainly know about. And that is actually making his project look really cool the way he wants to do it. So we'll get to this one in a little while, but this is the best way to do it to make it look really awesome. So we're going to get back to his original project, and then we're going to start stepping through these. So sit back and learn. about all the little different design techniques that you can apply on your projects. And we're also going to talk a little bit about this, but for the grace of God, because this is such a relevant subject in life. And I'd like to share with you something personal a little bit later in the video about my experience of coming to the grace of God, if you will, and how I have found total fulfillment in my life. Okay, so we are going to first look at this project, which is his original project that he sent to me. Now, I just want to set things up. You can see over here he has some toolpaths set up, and he's done fairly well getting these toolpaths set up and getting it to a point where he thought it would work. But we got to point out what's not working and why it's not working. In order to do that, we need to split our screens. Up here in this upper corner, we are going to split the screen. And now we can see both the 3D project and the 2D project. We're going to scroll into the letter B. And you notice that as we start coming into the letter B, it starts to lose its character. We're going to look at the letter B here. Oh, by the way, Greg, whatever font this is, please put down in the comments where you got it from and send me an email where you got it from, and I will put it in the description because I know other people are going to ask about this font and where they got it from. So that would be awesome. Clearly, we can see there's something kind of strange about the B and some other things around here. So I'm going to go through this project and show you several of the things that Greg can't get fixed up. The B is the first one. And if we look right up in here where the loop of the B comes around the top, it connects with the bottom loop. Whereas in the 2D drawing, it's not connected. It's very nicely flowing, swirly, kind of whatever. So that's one of his problems. Number two is the radius in this little area right here. It just kind of rounds out, doesn't look very good. When you look over here, it's very sharp, clear. There's this flow of the line here in the 2D drawing. It just looks very natural and clean. It just kind of swirls around. And so we lose that with that radius. Then the third, we have this little fill-in section right here that takes out this flowing line. When we come back to the 2D section, we got this flowing line that just comes down and it's gone right here. So that's one of the first problems. Then we look at the top of the B and we can see it kind of goes to a point, and there's this little white spot there. When we look at the top of the B over here, it's flattened off and it looks very clean and crisp. Also, you can see in the corner there's some white spots here where the tool path is missing. That does not exist over here in the frame of this part. Now there's other areas that are issues as well. Let's go to the word for. And I'm going to come over and come to the word for. So let's look at the letter O. When we're looking over here, it's a nice flowing type of pen line, and there's this gap between the start and the end point. Whereas in the model, the 3D model, that gap is not there. It's losing its character there. The corner of the R right here at the top, it doesn't show because it comes to a nice little corner down there. The cross on the F looks very thin and it has these radiuses on it. It just doesn't look good. Before I go on with this, I just want to show you what he's trying to accomplish. He wants these letters to be raised letters like that. So it's a very cool thing that he wants to do. That Greg wants to do, and we're going to show you a couple techniques just like I showed you before. I'll walk you through how to set those up to make them work. So we're going to split the screens again, and there's other areas that have issues. The G obviously has the same type of problem as the B does, where the G and then the swirl that comes down and around, they're closed up right here. And it's not right here. And then up in this little hook area of the G here, where the G ends and the swirl starts, it's all rounded out. When we come over to the 2D drawing, it's clean, crisp, got his corners, nice flowing lines. And over here, we don't have the flowing lines. We got these little bumps in there. And then there's one other thing I want to point out in this, and that would be, we're going to go to the ACE in Grace. They're all independent letters here, but here they're all connected. And there's a few others like the letter D. So those are the issues that he's having that he wants to work out to make this a nice clean project. And the whole reason that this is not working is because the tool paths that he's using and the router bits that he's using just won't allow for it. We're going to go into a tool path that is carving out the B. And so I'm going to click into it. And we have this tool path set up where we have, it's a pocket tool path. And a pocket tool path is what's allowing him to get this recessed look around the letters and the outside border. So all this area in black is a pocket. So he's using two router bits, a 1/4 inch end mill and an 1/8 inch end mill. And what is going on is those bits physically cannot fit in between those gaps in the letters like the G or the space between the O right up in here or the areas in the B. So first thing you want to try to do is go to a even smaller end mill, add another end mill in here. So we would go to a 1/16. So we're just going to add this in for right now, but you're going to see that it's still not going to work so well. It'll make it look better, but there are issues that are going to start showing up, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to hit the select button, and I'm going to add the 1/16 end mill to it. And so now we have 3 router bits here, and I'm simply going to have it calculate this out. So now it's calculated out, and we're going to preview the tool path. So I'm just simply going to run all the tool paths. And now you can see the B has cleaned up quite a bit, but we still have that connection right there. We still have these corners in here that we can't get in the B. It's kind of rounded. And the O still has this little thing going on. The F still isn't quite cleared up. Everything is looking better, but it's not good enough. There's one other thing you're going to run into when you do a project like this. If you look at the letter F in of and for, you see that it's very thin right here. And when you start carving something that thin, you start to run the potential risk of breaking this off, particularly if you have a wood that is soft, like pine. However, there is a technique that we can use to get the same result, which is the last one I'm going to show you, and still have a project where the likelihood of it breaking is going to be much less. But we're going to talk about some of the different elements or things you can do to think outside the box. Now you understand the issues that Glenn is having, and you've probably had these issues as well. So what we're going to do now is dive into the first variant of this project. We're going to dive deep into this. You're going to have a lot of fun because this is going to bring your imagination alive too as to some of the things you can do with projects. So let's get started on this first variant of Glenn's sign, but for the grace of God. So what we're going to show you, the first one is taking the project and making it look like this, which is kind of cool in and of itself. It's still raised up, as you can see right here, and yet we have the but for the grace of God. There's going to be quite a bit to do in this on each one, and you're going to learn a ton. Okay, so in order to get this one, we're going to have to open up a new Vectric software. I love my long mill. I do. I endorse the long mill CNC router, and they've actually come out with a new variant, the MK2. All right, we're going to open up another Vcarve Pro, and we're going to open an existing file, which will be his original file. There it is. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we are going to accomplish this project like that. What we're going to do first of all is come back over to his toolpaths, and we are going to delete the toolpaths that are all doing this pocket area because they aren't going to work for what we're doing now. What I do is I check the check boxes next to the ones I want to delete, and then I just hover over there and right click, and on that menu that pops up is delete at the bottom. I come over and I'm going to delete all the visible toolpaths. By checking these check boxes, I've made the toolpath visible. Now we've got a bunch of lines in here. Let me just show you what it looks like when it's visible. We're going to come over to the 3D view. And all these blue and red lines, those are toolpaths. That's the actual path that your router bit will take. We're going to delete those. So right click, hover over delete, and come down and delete the visible ones. Now we still have a remaining toolpath. That toolpath is the profile cutout, which he's done correctly. So and that's just not an issue. So we're not going to worry about that. I'm going to uncheck that. We're going to come up here to this little arrow up top and click it. And we're going to come into the CAD section, Computer Aided Designing. And I'm going to select the 2D View tab to get to this project. So one of the things we first want to do is consider our layers. What we're going to accomplish on this, again, I'm just going to show you, is this type of result right here. And so to do this, we need to set up something. Whenever you're doing design, and you need to set it up like this in something called layers. Now, whenever you're working on a project, the first thing you want to try to do is dissect the project that you want to create. And that will make your life a lot easier as you work through your project. You'll understand this as we move along in this little thing. We're going to use something called layers, which allows you to put things out of the way when you don't need them. You'll understand as we go along. Let's get back into this and I'll show you how we're setting this up in layers to make this much easier for us to work with. Now I've done a video already about layers. It's a deep dive video into layers. They're very important to work with. They'll make your life much easier. Layers, just in a short description, are like sheets of clear plastic on top of each other. And each piece of plastic has an aspect of your drawing. And you can take those plastic pieces in and out, put one on top, that one that you would be doing design work on. It gets things out of the way. You'll understand this in just a moment. But up in layers right here, we have layer 1. And you notice when I hover up to it, it turns blue. When you click it, this box opens up, and inside it says layer 1. So everything here is drawn on essentially one sheet of clear plastic in our drawing. And what we want to do is start getting these things separated out. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to add a new layer. So I'm going to click add a layer. And in that layer, we're going to type in text, because what we're going to do is put the text on that layer. So the whole point of what I'm doing is we have to organize our project so we can work with it easily. So I'm going to type in here text, and then I'm just going to click right here in the white, and now that has taken. Up in layer 1, I'm going to click that once, and I'm going to click it one more time until layer 1 turns blue. And now I'm going to call it boundary or borders. And that's going to be these two lines here. So we're just going to type in borders. Or better yet, profile. So it'd be the project profile. So now we've got that named, and then we're going to add a new layer in order to get this effect of this outline kind of cloudiness around the letters. So I'm going to go back to that, and we're going to create another layer, and we're going to add it, and we're going to call this word boundary. And now we're set up. So now we got to get everything on their own layers. So right now, everything is, we have to determine what layers are on. So when you're in layers, we're going to come over to that little light bulb on the first one and click that bulb next to profile, and everything turns off. And what that's telling me that everything we've drawn is on the profile layer. So we want to move the text to the text layer. So we're going to select the text like that, and then anywhere on the screen, right click and this menu will come up. Down at the bottom it says move to layer. With the text selected, we're going to just come over to that little layer menu that pops up, and we're going to click text. And what we just did was move the words to that new layer. So when I come back up to the layers area and click that blue box, and I turn profile off by clicking the light bulb, only the outside goes away. That means that that profile is on that profile layer. If I go to the text layer and click the light bulb, the text goes away. Now I know I've got those two on the right layer. So I'm going to turn that back on for right now. And I'm going to make sure word boundary is bold and it says word boundary up top, because what we're going to be doing now needs to be on the word boundary layer. So because it's bold and because it is up here, I know I'm on the word boundary layer. So I'm going to come over in the gray space and just click to turn off that menu. Now we're going to select the words, and we're going to start to create the cloud around the words. The way we do this is we come down to offset and layout. The first icon is a box with a dashed line around it, and the little pop-up flag that comes up says offset. So we're going to select that. What offset does, it creates new boundaries. It matches what's selected and puts new lines around it in the best way it can fit it. So with the words, we want these lines to be around the outside of the words. So we need to make sure outside is selected. And then we just have to select the distance that the lines are going to be away from the words. And I am going to go with 0.25 inches. And we're going to leave everything unchecked here, and I'm going to click the button offset. Now I want you to watch over in the screen here when I click offset. And here we go. We clicked it, and you see now we got the cloud around the words, which is very cool. But it created a cloud not just around the words, but some places it went inside the word as well. And the reason it did that is because wherever it could, it drew a line that is a 1/4 inch away from the boundary of the letter wherever it is. And so on the outside, from the edge of the B right here to this part of the little cloud is a 1/4 inch. And the same way is on the inside. It's looking for any place it can put anything a 1/4 inch in. And so this distance is a 1/4 inch as well. So it threw these in. We don't want them. We're going to get rid of them to create the cloud. I'm going to come back to the other drawing briefly to show you. On the B, we don't have those little loopy thing that's on the inside here or over here. So we're going to get rid of that right now. So I'm going to come back to that drawing. We're going to come and zoom out. So this is the first thing we need to fix. So first I'm going to close the menu, and then we are going to turn off the other two layers while we're on word boundary layer. So first of all, I want to deselect the words because they're pink right now. So I'm just going to click out somewhere in space here and click. And then we're going to come up to layers, and we're going to turn off the light bulb to the other two items. And now we just have the cloud that we just created, and it makes it very easy to delete things. This is why we want to create layers, so we can manage things much easier. Otherwise, I'd have to try to work around words and things like that. So now that we've gotten rid of everything, I'm going to turn the words back on and the profile back on. So you see how easy that was? You turn things off, then you just clean things out, and then you can come back and have everything back in. All right, so it's all looking good. We've got our cloud, but we've got some crossover here on the boundary, and this is going to cause some issue for us down the road when we run our toolpath. We have crossover with the B cloud, and we have crossover with the God cloud right here, and with the of cloud right there. And so the way we're going to solve that one is simply by resizing things. So I'm simply going to grab this frame. So both items in the frame are highlighted. Now I'm still on a different bound layer, but I can still modify things to a degree that are on other layers. As long as we aren't adding vectors to them, we're just changing the size of it, it's not going to cause any issue. So I'm going to click it again, and now we've got these dots that have shown up around the outside. What we want to do is just upsize the frame. And the way we do that is by hovering over the inner dot right here or on any corner. And when our cursor becomes a crosshair, now we know we've selected that dot. And then you hold your shift button down. And then we're going to just stretch that out just a little bit. And now we have taken that crossover off here. We've removed the crossover from up here. So everything's looking good now. So let's go over to toolpaths and run this out and see how it looks. So I'm going to switch to toolpaths by clicking this button right here. We don't want to use this little pull out tab here, which I've seen many people do on the one-on-ones that I do with them, only because this is a CAM section. It's computer aided manufacturing. Basically, you're telling the program how you want your router bit to work. Over here, you're telling it how you want to design your project. Two very different things. And when you have them both open, it can be confusing. So we're going to click this button here. And there we are. So now we've got it. And we are going to create a toolpath, what we call a pocketing toolpath, where if we switch over to that other design, we are going to clear out all the material where you see it's blue so that the cloud is raised up, and then we have V-carved the letters out. Cut 2D version of Vectric, what we're going to be doing here with the V-carving, you cannot do in that software. If you want to get V-carving, you want to upgrade. But you'll see why in just a little bit. Now we're going to make this, we're going to remove the material in this turquoise area so we can create this raised effect. And we are going to create a pocketing toolpath. So here's the pocket. We click it, and we have bits in here that it's populated as I did it from the last time. So we need to get rid of something. I don't need the 1/16 of an inch right now. I'm going to delete that or remove it. I'm also going to remove the 1/8 inch as well, because these are how do I put this? You see there's some sharp corners here. We don't need to worry about that. We're going to have nice little soft corners. So we're just going to do this with the 1/4 inch bit. So I'm going to remove the 1/8 inch bit as well. And we are going to be in raster mode. So raster moves your tool side to side as opposed to finding some point in the middle and starting to do basically a spiral outward. That's going to leave witness marks. You want your raster to be selected. I have other videos that explain that, and if you want to see those videos and you want to know how to find them, down below in the description is a link to a PDF of all the videos I've created, and they are all sorted in order for the beginner from where you should start with the design software and your CNC router, and it'll walk you up the ladder as opposed to you searching things out. Maybe pause the video for the moment and just download that PDF, and you'll have all the videos you need that I've created, and you'll be able to search through that instead of trying to search YouTube endlessly. We all know what that's like. Raster mode, we got the 1/4 inch bit selected. We are going to come down and simply calculate. I'm going to call this God Pocket, and I'm going to say 14 EM. Always name your tool path so you understand what it's doing. Vectric will plug in a default name, and that default name will never make sense to the project, the area of the project that you're working on. And I always like to put the bit in there. Greg did a great job when he was naming his tool paths. He was doing exactly that. Okay, we're going to calculate it, and it says no vector selected, so I need to select vectors. I need to select this boundary here, and I need to select the clouds, but I've got the words in the way. So I would have to pick a cloud, and then pick that cloud, and that cloud, and it gets too much picking. This is why we switch things to layers. So we're going to come up to the layers section and turn the text layer off. Now that's out of the way. Now I can just grab that line as one window, and I've picked everything. And then we calculate. And there is our tool path. So then we are going to just preview the tool path. And we're going to preview the selected tool path. Vectric just created a tool path right here called God Pocket 14EM. It's highlighted blue and it's checked. The check shows you the tool path lines, all these blue and red lines up here. The blue highlight around the words means that's a selected tool path, and that's all we want to see right now. So I'm going to view selected tool path, and now we have it, and it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. So it's just hard to see. So what we're going to do is come up here in the top, and you see you get these radio buttons here. These are what they're called. It's when you select one, the other one turns off. And you notice right now what happened. I just got some color. We went to the global fill color and clicked it. And what it did, when it global filled any area on the project that the router bit was cutting in this simulation, was now colored whatever default color is selected, and it is picked the automatic color. So we're going to just click this little box next to it, and we're going to pick a different color. We're going to go with that turquoisey color that I had. But now you see we've got this cool kind of cloudy shape, but it doesn't really look like much yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, because we have to put the words in here, and I'm going to split the screen with using this button right here. So you click that, and now we can see the 2D and the 3D. And now I'm going to turn the words on by going to layers, click that, and I turn the text back on. Then we click over here, just out in space, and deselect everything else, which is fine. And then we're going to come back over to the tool path, and we are going to select the V for Vcarve. If you have cut 2D, unfortunately, you do not have this feature. Select the Vcarve, and then we need to select the text. So now we have text selected, and that's what we're going to be carving. And we have to select the bit that we're going to be using, which is going to be the 60-degree V bit. Considering the size of his project, which is about 12 inches wide, and it looks like 18 inches tall, the lettering is very thin, so we want to get the details in there. And when you're wanting to get fine details, you want to use a higher angle router bit, especially like right here, this part of the F, and where letters get thin, like the E there as well. So we're going to go with a 60-degree V bit, which is already listed here. So I'm going to come down, and we are now going to V-carve the text. So we're going to change the name. We're going to call it text, and we're going to say 60V and calculate. And now you see in the 3D model, I'm going to expand that. We have our tool path showing up. I'm going to preview the selected tool path. And now we have but for the grace of God. And this looks pretty cool, but it looks kind of choppy. Some things don't look good. Like we have this little bubble right in the middle that doesn't conform to the rest of the flow of the project. And the word of and grace, God are connected, of and grace are connected. And they look like they might be a little close together relative to the word the and but for. So we're going to do some modifications. Now we're at a part where most YouTubers tend to cut out. That's where we make mistakes. However, I try not to cut out mistakes that I make, so when you make them, you'll know how to get around them. So we're going to start doing something in this project, and I'm going to make a couple boo-boos along the way, but you're going to see how to fix those boo-boos as we go along. So let's get into this and finish refining this project up. I want to show you the project in its finished sense. You can see I have now separated the words, but for the grace of God, with the exception of but for. That's not separated, but in this process that we're doing now, we are going to separate it because everything else is separated, so we'll make but and for separated as well. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to go back to the project, and we're going to close this, and we're going to switch back to our 2D design area. And this little tab right up here, it says 2D view, we're going to select that. And what we've done is we've now switched back to the 2D view. What we need to do is be able to have the ability to move the words around, to separate them out, get the but and for separated, get grace and of separated, get of and God separated, so everything's an independent word. This gets kind of fun when you really learn how to do this, and I want you to practice what I'm about to do. So we have but for the grace of God selected, and you notice that it's all solid purple or pink. That means it's all one element right now, and so we need to break these elements apart, and the way we're going to do that is by what they call welding. We're going to weld the text, and that sounds like that puts it together, but it doesn't. It's used for in a certain way, but just trust me, weld. The way you have to have the but for or the word selected, anything you want to weld. And then under edit objects, the second row down, there's this little icon that says weld. We're going to select that, and we get this pop-up comes up, and it says replace or keep. What it's saying is, do we want to keep the original text or the original vectors and have the welded vectors on top of that? Or do we just want to replace it? And what we're going to do is replace it. So we simply click replace, and now got rid of the words and turn them into vectors that we can edit, that have nodes, excuse me, and what have you. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to select the B. Now you see the B loop on the inside is now an independent element. It's the same way all the way around. The other loop on the inside of the B is an independent element. This gives us the ability to start moving things around the way we want. So the first thing I'm going to move around is the word but. I'm going to get it away from the word for. So I'm going to highlight the cloud and the letters, and I'm simply going to use my arrow keys on the keyboard, or the cursor keys. I'm going to press the left arrow key a couple times, and you see I've moved the word but over a little bit. And now with the same with the word for, I'm going to move it to the right just a little bit. Then we're going to come down to grace, and we're going to raise grace up. Raise it up. I like that. We're raising grace. So I'm just going to bump it up a little bit. And then God, we're going to select that and move that to the right a little bit, and the word of, and bump it over to the left. And now we have made some changes. Now there's some other things that have happened when we've done this. You notice that we are on word boundary. So we know that word boundary is this right here, the boundary around the words. And what I did is I got a little ahead of myself. Whenever you are actually making a fundamental change to something and you want it to stay in the same boundary, you need to be on that boundary up here at the top while you're making that change. And what I'm talking about are the words, but for the grace of God. I was on the word boundary when I made that, when I did the weld command. And so what that did, the minute it modified it onto the word boundary. And I'll show this to you. When I select the layers and I come over to text and turn that off, but for the grace of God still is there. So I needed to be on the text layer when I made that modification. So that means that now I have to go through the frustration of, or the extra step of moving it back to that layer. So I'm going to do that real quick. We're going to grab that. I'm going to hold the shift button down and just start selecting all the words so we can get these back to where they belong. So now they're all selected and I can right click anywhere, come down to the bottom, move to layer, and we're moving it to layer text. And just to verify, we are going to simply come over to the layers again and click the text light bulb, and they have all disappeared, so we're back in order again. Okay, I'm going to turn it back on. Now we're going back to the cam section. By the way, if you feel like I'm starting to give you some new ways of thinking, I know I'm moving a little fast, there's a lot to cover, but if I'm giving you some new ways of thinking, please take a moment and hit the like button down below. So that'll help the videos on my channel grow, rank up in YouTube, and that'll help me for doing what I do to help you. I would much appreciate that. Okay, so now coming back over to the tool paths, we're going to split our screen again. And I need to pull this in. There we go. So now we have separated button 4. We have raised grace, and we have separated of and God. And so we're going to recalculate. And I think this isn't going to work. I know it's not going to work, because it's going to be missing some elements. And it says one or more errors occurred while doing this. And the errors that occurred was when we welded the words, we actually fundamentally changed them. And so Vectric, in the toolpath that we've created, the text 60V, it no longer sees that text because we turned it from text and we welded it. So we have to go back into that toolpath by double clicking it. And then we're going to have to come back over to our 2D view. But you see, now it looks all messy and stuff because it's got all these arrows. Those arrows are the actual toolpath that the bit is taking. We want to turn that off so you can just go up to these icons up at the top and hover over the one that says toggle toolpath. Click that and it turns that off. So we're in the Vcarve where we're actually carving the text, and now we have to select all the text. We've got all this stuff around. All we have to do is come up to the layers and turn off word boundary. And look at that, we've got one word boundary that's in the wrong place. So I'm simply going to click it, right click it, move it to layer word boundary, and now it disappeared. Then I'm going to click out here to make sure everything's deselected. And then we're going to select all the letters, just like that. And we're going to come back over here and we're simply going to recalculate. And now it's all recalculated. We're going to reset the preview. And now we're going to run all the toolpaths. So I've got one toolpath that shows the outer cutout. But look, now we have the project almost done except for this little connection right here, which is very easy to fix. We simply come back over to the project. We're going to turn word boundary back on. I'm going to click over here so everything's deselected. Then I come in and simply select the word of, and I'm going to just tease it. I'm going to zoom in really close so it's going to tease it down just a little bit. Almost not noticeable. And then we're going to come back to that toolpath, the text toolpath. Instead of going into it to recalculate, I'm going to hover over it, right click it, and come up to recalculate and recalculate. We click OK, refresh the toolpath, and preview all toolpaths. And there's still a little bit of that left. So we've got to probably move grace up a little bit, and we'll move the words the up a little bit. So we're simply going to do that. So I'm just going to grab those, and I'm going to come in a little close, and I'm just going to nudge it up just a little bit, and we'll see if we fix that. So we're going to just hover over that again, recalculate, say OK, refresh, and then preview all toolpaths once again. And we are having a hard time with this one, but this is the way it works. So we're going to take of and God, and I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to shift them both over a little bit and down. Now we don't want to go down. We don't want to get too close. We might actually lose that. I'm just going to shift them over just a tad. Not too much. Recalculate. Recalculate. OK. Refresh. Run all toolpaths. And so how do we fix this, that it keeps coming up? And you know what? It looks like we've got it almost starting to happen right in here. So one of the things is to, when we do this offset, is to make it a little bit smaller maybe. We're going to try one more fix. We're going to take the word the. We are going to move it over a little bit, and then we're going to move it up a little bit. And then we're going to take grace and the and move them both up. And I believe that we will get this. Recalculate, recalculate, OK. And this is being such a nuisance, so I'm going to cheat the system a little bit. Now it looks like grace didn't, something's wrong here. Let's take a look. Let's get this. Hey, notice how grace is sitting high and the word the is sitting high? So here's why. Because I only recalculated the toolpath. I didn't recalculate everything. So when you're hovered over it and you tell it to recalculate, I told it to recalculate that toolpath that is hovered over. But if we recalculate all, refresh, and run all toolpaths. So from now on, make sure you recalculate everything. Looking awesome. Double click that section, and we have now created that pretty cool sign. So Greg, I hope that this first section long, or you who's watching this, you've gotten a new idea how you can make a project and make it easier from the original that Greg had. This is just one way. So this is Greg's original, and we've solved the problems with the letters by using the Vcarve function and creating a cloud around it and then doing our pocket. So that's the first one we've created. I think it looks awesome. What do you think? Well, that was a pretty long walkthrough on rethinking the first way of doing this project and really just showing you how to do it. You even saw some mistakes along the way that I had to fix. So now it's time to do the next variant, which is the easiest variant of this project. Now, before I go on, if you feel like this video is giving you some new ideas or some tips and tricks, then please give me a thumbs up. It helps the videos rank, and you might want to subscribe to this channel because I teach very beginner stuff. I know this video is more for someone who's got a little bit of experience with the Vectric software. However, I've got basic, complete walkthroughs of very simple projects to get you going with this software, the Vectric software, and with CNC routers and router bits. In fact, I've got a lot of resources for you. That PDF I was talking about down below, download that PDF because you'll have everything you need. You won't have to search YouTube for answers. You'll have everything in a list. All right, so let's move on to the next variation of this project. The second one we're going to do is this one right here. This will be the easiest and fastest because it's strictly using the V-carving tool to carve out. So what I'm going to do is we are going to now open up another Vectric. I love my long mill. Did I say that before? And we are going to open the original file again. Oops, cancel that. Open existing file. And we're going to bring that in. So we have the same file open in multiple Vectric. We're going to come back over to the toolpath area, and we're going to eliminate those 3 toolpaths again. Right click and delete the visible ones. Now they're gone, and now we have the sign. And what we're going to do is simply Vcarve the lettering as it is. So just come into the Vcarve toolpath, click it, and we have the 60-degree V-bit. We're just going to stay with it, and that's all we have to do. And we just simply need to give it a name. We're going to call it God Text 60V and calculate. And no vectors are selected. So, by the way, we have not done anything on this. We haven't done anything with layers or anything. We all have just one layer there. So we're going to select the letters, which is all we want to Vcarve, and then we'll calculate it. So we have that. We're going to change the color to global fill color, and we're going to get that nice turquoise color because I think that's a very pretty color. I believe that's it. And we'll run the selected toolpath. There it is. And then we're going to split our screen. So you see them both. We're going to close this menu, and we're going to come in and click the border. We're just going to put an accent on this thing. And we're going to use the profile toolpath. I select that, and we're going to use the same bit that we're carving with. So we don't have to do a bit change. So I'm going to change the bit, and we're going to use a 60-degree V-bit, which is what we had selected before. Now we have to fix our depth, and we're going to go to a 0.05. We don't want it to go too deep, but we want it to be deep enough to show the accent, but it doesn't overpower the words. And then we just want to make sure we're profiling on the line. So you click the on button there. We're going to give it a name called Accent 60V, calculate, and run the toolpath, the selected toolpath. And now we've done that. And we are going to go back into that final profile toolpath where it actually cuts out the sign like that, because I want to get rid of the tabs in this one as well. I click the tabs off, calculate, and now we're going to run all toolpaths and click that out of there, and there's that sign. So you can see that was the fastest modification of the whole thing that we've done. It's also going to be the fastest run on your entire on these different things I'm showing you. So that's pretty cool. That's 2, and that's the second project. The interesting thing is it's also the fastest. It literally took me 6 minutes to teach you how to do that. It would have taken about 1 minute to actually do it had I not taken the time to shoot the video and just take my time with it for you. In perspective, the first one took about 40 minutes to really walk you through the thing and go through my errors and solve them and what have you. But it's this next one that is going to show you a whole new technique to think about for the next project you're going to be making. That's going to make it really, really cool. So we're going to dive into it, but please thumbs up and subscribe, because I got so much stuff to show you. I love teaching you. Anyway, let's dive into this, and I'm going to tell you a little story too. I think you'll relate to this about the grace of God and my personal experience on it. Let's go. And we have one more to do, and it's this one right here. It's essentially the same thing that Greg had, except we're going to make it work this time. So before I get into this, I want to talk to you briefly about my little personal story about my rise to grace with God. Most of us in life, we go through a period of time where we're wondering what our purpose is. And we're always on this like quiet search. We just don't know what it is. And so there's always a certain sense of unhappiness or incompleteness. Because we really, ultimately, this whole sense of purpose, what we're really looking for is the thing that's going to bring us spiritual joy, that inner joy that we so much want to have. And so I was no different, went through life like that. And in fact, I felt very incomplete during my early years. So I started to go to church, Christian church, and did that for several years. But something started to bother me about a couple things in it, and I want to share this with you as to why it made such a difference in my life when I started to go on the road that I ultimately went down. What I've always been taught was there's this God out there that loves me endlessly. God created me. I am his child. And I'm actually using the word his. I don't like to put gender to God because God is not genderized. But I guess we all say it, so it's just accepted. But to me, God is it because there is no better word than it being God other than God. Anyway, so there's God who loves me endless. God is love. It's pure love. But I was being taught that if I don't love God back, then I will go to hell. Right? I will be condemned for eternity. And it absolutely made zero sense to me. This total conflict of pure love, of something that loved me so much, would be willing to send me to eternal unhappiness and pain for not being perfect, for not doing what I was told to do. It just, to me, there's this idea that if love is willing to do that in any way, shape, or form, it truly is not love. And so I really had to grasp with the idea. And I actually walked away from the church because I could not accept that teaching. And people were saying, well, you have to have Jesus as a savior and what have you. And it didn't make sense that I had to follow Jesus to be a part of God. So I just couldn't put the pieces together. And after Barbara died, my wife, of cancer, when she died, she was 44 years old, and she died in 2011 from cancer. And it really made me start to look at life and look at myself and start to question, I've got all this unhappiness, all this incompleteness, I will say, in my life. And I don't know why. I didn't go after the things I truly wanted to go after, the adventures that I wanted to take. And why didn't I? And I realized it's because of fear. We're supposed to live under certain rules in the world, and if I didn't live under those rules, I was violating them and I would be rejected. And that was, I think, what many people are afraid of, is rejection or someone not agreeing with them. So we conform. But I, at that point, decided that I'm not sure I like this conformity anymore. And then when my best friend Bob died a year later, one of the things he said to me, he said, Garrett, if I could just do it again. He was going to die. We knew it. He was in hospice. He said, if I could do it again, I would have gone to Sedona and lived there, not Cincinnati. And I just totally felt that. I felt his regret for not doing what he wants to do in his life. In that moment, I decided I will never say those words on my deathbed. And so I really got into this mode of I am going to live my life and I'm going to live it with joy the way I want to. And I'm not going to live under the rules of responsibility if it makes me unhappy. But I am going to find my purpose as I'm doing this, whatever I was doing, which I became an avid outdoorsman, literally lived in the mountains, did a 5-month hike through the Pacific Crest Trail, and just explored the world. Work was secondary. And By the time all this was done, I was not an engineer anymore. And after all this was done, I went back to engineering and I felt my soul being sucked dry. I hated being in what I called the box at that point. Having to go to a 9 to 5 job that I felt was pointless at this point because I didn't know what my purpose was and I couldn't find it. And at this point, I had to find my purpose, but I couldn't. And that led me down this spiraling path of wanting to almost kill myself. And I literally put a gun to my head. And I had two choices: pull the trigger or figure it out. And from that moment, I made the decision I'm going to figure this out no matter what it took, no matter how hard it was. But I would never pull myself to that point of pulling a trigger again. I got grandkids. I got you, this amazing CNCer out there. And suddenly, the spiritual thing started to make sense. What I learned was God is love, but so much more. God is a creator, created us, created the world around us. Everything in the world is a creation of God. Some people might argue that that's a creation of man, but man is a creation of God, and man created it. So therefore, it's a creation of God. Let's go a little further on this. I know I'm taking a long time. I got some cool stuff to show you still. But I just want you to understand this, why I'm here teaching you about this amazing thing of CNC, and why I say to people, if you are looking at it, go get it. Stop being afraid to jump in. Because we are creators. God created us in his image and likeness. Its image and likeness. And God is pure love, but it's also pure creation. And this sense and essence godness of creation is everywhere at all times, unchanging. That means it is within you. I have been taught that God is this thing out there that I have to pray to. And I now understand I am part of the essence of God, as are you. We are the creation of God, and we are the existence. And collectively, we're so much part of that creation. And so what happens, that part in you that's not fulfilled, it's because your creative spirit is stifled. The true you has been living in a world that isn't fully you. And now you're drawn to CNC. And the reason you're drawn to it at the deepest of levels is your spirit is saying you are here for a reason. And you've been on a journey, and now I am exposing you to the reason. The reason is you are a creator, and you have amazing creations like this sign, but for the grace of God that Greg is going to be giving to some friends who need it. And he's given it out of love. And Greg has created this in his mind and has taken advantage of these amazing, wonderful technological tools that we have to take software such as Vectric Vcarve and CNC router such as the long mill CNC router, and will make this project, and he will feel the sense of inner accomplishment at the deepest parts of his soul. And then he's going to give it to other people, and it's going to have an impact on them. Because Greg's spirit now has filled up with the love of the creative spirit of God. And now he wants to spread that. And that's what we do. That's why I do what I do, to tell you. If you're looking at this and you're going, oh, but it costs so much, what you're doing is keeping yourself unhappy for the sake of money rather than for the sake of creativity and the fulfillment and the relaxing. When you're doing this, there's just something within you that's going, this is so right. So ultimately, the grace of God. We are creators. And when you honor that within you and say, I don't want to do this 9 to 5 anymore, I'm going to go do this, and get that CNC router. Or if you're saying, I live on Social Security and I don't have enough money, but I can't take any more money because then I'll start losing Social Security. And so you're holding back your own happiness in both ways. Just do it. Your happiness, if you stay on that kind of journey, will be robbed from you by the cemetery. Don't let the cemetery steal your dreams. But for the grace of God, go after the spirit that you're feeling within and live the creative energy that God has given you and that you are part of. Well, that was quite a little talk. I'm very fulfilled, and that's where I am in my heart. And what I want you to feel as an individual, as a spirit, to let that creative energy come out. Let it shine in the creations that you can make on a CNC router. All right, let's get into this final variant of this project that Greg had done, and the one that you will like the best and Greg will ultimately make. So let's dive in, learn this new interesting technique, and take yourself to the next level. Let's go. With that, we have to open up yet another one. So we're going to go back to I love my long mill. If you're looking for a CNC router, I think I said this, I don't know, as this video has gone on for quite a while, go after the long mill. I've done so much research. The company is very customer centric, and they're actually there to help you. And I'm here to help you. Okay, let's open up Vcarve again. And we are going to open up Greg's project again. And I hope you're getting something out of this. Give me a thumbs up if you are, please. And subscribe, because this is how deep I get into projects. I don't always give speeches like that, but I definitely try to get into these projects and really help you as a beginner understand this with the Vectric software, with your CNC router, help you understand CNC router bits. Okay, let's make the most amazing one. We're going to come back over the tool paths. I'm going to delete the 3 toolpaths once again. Delete visible. And now comes my favorite one. So what we're going to do is come into the V carving toolpath. Select that. And we're going to check this box that says flat depth. Right up here at the top. And we're going to set a depth of 0.05. Make sure we have our 60-degree V-bit. That's what we're going to work with. And then we're going to come down and use a clearance tool. In the clearance tool, we're going to check that box and we're going to select a 1/4 inch end mill. And then we're going to select another bit, which will be the 1/8 inch end mill. And then what we're going to do is come back to the 1/4 inch, click it, and we're going to switch over to raster right there. So we go back and forth and follow the grain. We're going to come down and give this a name. We're going to call it pocket. We'll call it God pocket. God's pocket. And then we're going to just leave that name because we have 3 different router bits that are going to be applied here. So we're not going to put the bit in yet. And we're going to calculate this. And no vectors were selected. So I'm going to come over and I'm simply going to select the words and the inside boundary and calculate. And then we are going to change this color to that nice little turquoise color. It says right there. And preview all the toolpaths. And in that one simple Vcarve toolpath, we have fixed this up almost perfect. The B is separated right here. We have the nice little straight lines here. Now you're going to see that we've got some of these little clearance areas right in here. These are still areas where the 1/8 inch bit can't get into. And we can clean these up if we want by adding another bit into that toolpath. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click those toolpaths and I'm simply going to select the 16th bit. This project will take the longest, but it'll be the best looking project of them all. That's why I know Greg is going to do this. I'm going to recalculate it and re-preview all the toolpaths. And so it cleaned up most of the mess. There's some places that we just can't clean up, but you'd have to get a 32nd diameter bit. And I want you to look at what we have accomplished here. We have the full letters, but we have taken advantage of the V-carving feature called the flat depth. At the edge of all the letters, it actually tapers out at a 30-degree angle. And that's because the V-carving tool actually runs around this whole thing and leaves that beveled edge. And that will help prevent any breakage from the thin areas of the letters. And yet at the same time, it's keeping with the character of the letters. So for the most part, everything is perfect. And I just want to state in this, when you give something like this to somebody and you have those little imperfections, like Mark Lindsay says, don't worry about it. They're not seeing the imperfections, they're seeing the message. If you didn't know already, I have said this time and time again, words sell. Words sell because they mean something at deep levels to people. And that's why I put the list together of the top 50 words that sell. The words like welcome and home that people make on the CNC routers. And if you want that, then down below there's a link to get that where you can sign up for the CNC Insiders, and you will also get that list for free, as well as many other benefits that the general public that watches this channel doesn't get. So you may want to sign up for the CNC Insiders email list. If you want to make money with your CNC machine, sign up to the CNC Entrepreneurs Facebook group. There are some people in there that are making killer livings, and they are more than happy to help you learn how to do this business stuff. You also want to just keep tabs. You want to sign up for the CNC Entrepreneurs or be in CNC Insiders or the CNC Entrepreneurs, because I also give webinars to teach you all this stuff, how to make money with your CNC business and how to start that business the right way. But there's a lot of information down below in the description. But in the end, we have taken Greg's project from this, where he had all kinds of issues, and we've taken it to this other method, several methods. So now you know of several different ways that you can look at your projects to create them when you're struggling with one. There are more than one ways to skin a cat. So help me out, give me a thumbs up if I helped you out. I'd also love to see a comment down below. I'd also like to know which technique you think is the best, that gives the coolest results. So with that, I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, and I'd like to thank you for hanging around, and we will talk to you next time.